Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to the vlog. Today's episode is a little bit different. I'm going to be recapping my experience from the WPT event I played over at the Seminole Hard Rock Hotel and Casino over in Tampa, Florida. I played the $600 entry, $1 million guaranteed tournament. Now, I'll let you guys know they did not allow filming in the exhibition hall where the tournament was, so those hands will just be a recap. Then afterwards, I have some cash game hands that do have footage, and I'll throw those on the end. If you enjoy, like and subscribe. Let's get to it. In this first hand, the blinds are at 100, 200. We're in the small blind and we look down at ace king of clubs. We see a raise from early position up to 300. The hijack calls before it folds around to me and I re-raise to 1300. The early position player then 4-bets to 4K. The hijack folds and it's back on me. This player is obviously representing some strength, so I think I have to be wary of things like aces and kings, but I also think he could be betting a hand like queens or jacks or maybe ace king himself here, and I'm wondering if I can actually get him to lay it down if I show max aggression. With that in mind, I 5-bet jam all in. My opponent doesn't snap me off, so now I think I might be in decent shape. He says he can rebuy and he ends up calling for 15.1k, and then he flips over pocket queen, so it's a coin flip. The flop is 10-10-8 with one club, doesn't really help us. The turn is a 9 of clubs though, so I've picked up a flush draw, the river, a jack of diamonds, and he's going to win this one. With about half our starting stack left, we're in the big blind and we look down at ace jack of diamonds. We see a call from early position before it folds to the button, who just rips it for 10.2k. Originally I thought he meant to grab two $100 chips to call, but it's a jam. Back on me, and I only have about 9.5k left behind, and a suited ace is one of the best hands I've seen in a while, and probably one of the better hands I'm going to show up with here, so I call. The early position player folds, and the button flips over king 4 of offsuit. Okay, the board runs out clean, we win this one, and now we're back up to 23.2k in our stack. The blind's at 200, 400, 400, we have 23k in our stack, we're in the hijack, and we look down at pocket queens. We see an early position caller before it folds around to me, and I bump it up to 1700. We see the button make the call, and the early position limper calls as well, so we're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is king 6-7 with 2 diamonds. It checks to me, and I don't see my opponents holding a king here very often, so I c-bet for 4k. Once again, the button flats. The early position player folds, so we're off to the turn. The turn is a 2 of clubs. It really feels like a blank. With my stack size the way it is, I don't think there's much merit in making a small bet and leaving myself a small, awkward size on the river, so instead I decide to jam. My opponent snap calls, and she has ace-king offsuit. My read was totally wrong. I can't believe that she didn't re-raise pre-flop or post-flop. I mean, we're getting the money in regardless of the street, I think, but just kind of amazing how slow she played it. The river is a blank, and she wins this one, and we are crippled. The blind's still at 200, 400, 400. We've got 4.2k in our stack. We're under the gun. We look down at king jack of clubs. With only about 10 big blinds left, I go ahead and shove all in. It folds all the way around to the big blind, who says, I hope I have something good, and puts in the blind call. So we roll him over, and he has ace jack offsuit. Figures. The flop is king 10 blank, so I'm in the lead. The turn is a queen, the river is a 9, and we are out of this WPT event. Well, never good to be riding down the escalator with so much time left. This was a fun experience. I don't play a lot of tournaments, and this was fun to take a shot. I don't know. I just don't know how to play tournament style well. I don't play short stacked well. Got lucky with that gift with the ace-jack suited, and then the pocket queen's hand. There's opportunities for me to slow down there and not give it away like that, but again, I want to stay aggressive. I want to start building up some chips. I had about 23k in front of me, so trying to build up. But I want to thank A Mediocre Time with Tom and Dan for buying a piece of the action, and I want to thank all of you who are playing on PokerBROS, because that definitely helped get me in this tournament as well. And thanks for following. We've got our name on the list for the 1-3, but right now we're going to start at 1-2. We are straddling from the button, and we look down at ace-3 offsuit. We see 2 calls from the hijack and the cutoff. When the action gets to me, I check. We're off to a flop. The flop is ace-deuce-4 with 2 spades, so we've got top pair and straight draw. It checks to me, and I continue on for $12. Only the hijack call, so we're off to a turn heads up. The turn is a 6 of hearts, and I really don't think that's going to change much. I continue and I bet $20, and once again my opponent calls, so we're off to the river. The river's interesting. It's a 3, so it gives me 2 pair, but it puts a 4-liner to the straight out there. Given this run out, I'm going to check. We roll it over and we win this first one. We were in the cutoff and we look down at pocket 8s. We see 2 calls from early position. When the action gets to me, I bump it up to $12. The small blind, under the gun, middle position, and the hijack all call, so we're off to a flop 5 ways. The flop is deuce 3-9 with 2 spades, so a pretty good flop for my hand. It checks all the way around to me, and I fire a bet of $25 out. Back on under the gun, and then he check raises all in to $47. Then the action goes to the hijack, and he calls for less, about $40. So it's only 22 more, but am I in trouble here? Could I be drawing dead to a hand like pocket 9s? But even if I am, I can't fold to this price, so I make the call. The turn is a great card. It's the 8 of hearts. Nailed it. The river, 10 of diamonds, we roll it over. The hijack shows ace 9 and early position muck, so we're going to win this one as well. About 5 minutes later, I got called to the 1-3, so I racked up with about $50 profit, and I headed over to the 1-3 table. And it had some guys from Orange City and a guy who plays in Tampa, but who's very familiar with my channel, so this should be fun. We're in the big blind, and we look down at king 9 of spades. There are 4 limpers, and when the action gets to me, I elect not to punish the limpers. I just check. We're off to a flop multi-way. The flop is deuce 7-9 with 2 clubs, so a flop top pair here. It checks to under the gun, who bets out for $12. We see 2 callers before the action gets to me, and so I want to start applying some pressure, and I raise to $42. Under the gun ends up folding, as does +2. The action is on the cutoff, who thinks for a bit, but then he folds. We're straddling from the button, and we look down at jack 10 of spades. We see the big blind raise to $20, and it folds all the way around to me, and I think with jack 10 suited, I'm probably supposed to re-raise here. Everybody talks about how well jack 10 plays post-flop. I don't know, I'm not very good at playing it, so I elect to just flat here. We're off to a flop heads up. The flop is 3-3-8 with 1 spade. My opponent continues his story for $20, and I end up calling here, and I'm planning to blast off on any spade, any jack, or any 10. The turn's not one of those, it's an 8, so now the board is double paired. My opponent checks, and figuring that I'm probably in trouble, I check behind. The river is interesting, it's a jack, so I rivered a sneaky 2 pair here, and my opponent leads out for $45. Given his line, I could see this being something like ace-king or ace-queen, and he thinks his ace is good here, so I end up making the call, and my opponent looks kind of bummed out, but then he rolls over pocket jacks for a rivered boat. He said he was hoping I had an 8 and was going to blast off there, so sir, you win this one. We're straddling from the button once again, and we wake up with ace-king offsuit. We see calls from the small blind and the cutoff before the action gets to me, and I bump it up to $20. Only the small blind calls, so we're off to a flop heads up. The flop is jack high, and it checks to me, and I think it's fine to c-bet here, but there's a lot of cards that can help us, like another club, or any face card, or any 10, so I just check behind. The turn is a queen of hearts. It checks to me once again, and picking up a straight draw now, I fire for $45. My opponent does a little bit of huffing and puffing, but then he folds. We were in the big blind. We look down at 7-8 offsuit. It folds around to the hijack, who bumps it up to $10. The small blind calls, and I call as well, so we're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is 3-3-9, so I've missed here, but the action checks all the way through, so we'll see the turn. The turn is a 7. It brings in some straight and flush draws. It checks to me, and I decide to go ahead and fire with second pair, and I bet $20. We see a call from the hijack before the small blind raises to $45. Obviously, I'm getting a really good price, so I call, and I'm pretty sure that's going to bring the hijack in as well, but it's the risk I'm going to take. I make the call, then the hijack for some reason folds, so guess he's better than me. We're off to the river. The river is a very interesting card. It's the 8 of hearts, so it brings in both the flush and the straight draw, and my opponent leads for $85. It's back on me, and I'm thinking, and I think that specific 8 saved money bringing in all the draws, so I end up folding. He shows me the 9 of hearts, so he didn't have air, and he had me beat. We're on the button, and we look down at pocket 7s. We see an early position raise to $10. It folds around to me, and I call in position, and both the small blind and big blind call, so we're off to a flop 4 ways. The flop is 9-3 deuce rainbow, so pretty good flop. It checks to me, and I continue for $30. Everyone folds. This just kind of supports my theory that pots at the Hard Rock are either giant or they're tiny. I seem to lose all the big ones and only win the small ones. I don't know, maybe things at the 2-5 game are better. I just always find myself struggling to make moves here. In the final hand of the night, there's a button straddle. We're in the cutoff, and we look down at ace-jack offsuit. We see 2 calls before the action gets to me, and I bump it up to $25. We see a call from the button and an early position player, so we're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is king-jack-7 with 2 hearts, so we've got middle pair here. It checks to me, and I put out a bet of $55, and the button immediately snap jams on me. So it's back on me. It's a little over $100 more. I'm holding the ace of hearts, blocking the nut flush draw, so that makes it a little bit less likely that he's on hearts. I want to call here, but I can't do it, and I fold. My opponent shows a king, and so I was behind. I stuck around for about 20 more minutes, but I just wasn't feeling it. So with a long drive and a lot of editing ahead of me, I packed it up and called it a day. Man, the trend of not being able to win at this place continues. I don't know what it is about this building, but I'm not sure I've had a winning session since October. So probably should have just stayed at the 1-2 game, but you know, I'm really fond of the 1-3 game. So I think we made $50 playing 1-2, and we lost like $300 playing 1-3. So I'm gonna go play some blackjack, try to make it back. You guys enjoy, like and subscribe. We'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more poker content. And you can follow me on Instagram at 7cardflushpoker.